Learners create meaning by interweaving new information into what they already know and have experienced. This presentation focuses on meaningful reception learning and schema theories in an effort to understand how learners acquire, remember, and apply learned information. Valuable instructional applications gleaned from these theories will also be discussed. The theory of meaningful reception learning, espoused by Ausable, describes learning as happening when learners create, revise, and strengthen an organized hierarchy of connections between prior knowledge and new information. Meaning occurs when learners actively interpret their experiences using certain internal cognitive operations. Accordingly, the instructor is responsible for presenting information in an organized and potentially meaningful way to the learners, while aiding learners in activating relevant prior knowledge. Whether or not material is meaningful depends more on the preparation of the learner and on the organization of the material than it does on the method of presentation. Unlike radical behaviorism and cognitive information processing theory, meaningful reception learning theory does not aim to explain everything about the ways humans learn or retain information. It is a theory that attempts to help educators facilitate learning efficiently and effectively by providing some guidance about how materials in the learning environment can be best arranged. Curricular materials are viewed as potentially meaningful, and it is the job of instructors and students to find ways to connect new information to what the students already know. Reception learning is a deductive approach that involves presenting content to learners in its final form. This is contrasted to an inductive approach, in which learners attempt to discover concepts by gathering, examining, and categorizing relevant data, examples, features, details, etc. In meaningful reception learning, there is great emphasis on the intentionality and transparency of helping learners recognize what they already know relevant to the content. Though information is presented to learners, meaningful reception does not imply that learners are passively absorbing the content. Rather, a learner is cognitively active as he or she integrates new information into his or her current cognitive structure, which is the learner's overall memorial structure or integrated body of knowledge. The cognitive structure is a hierarchy of generalizations, subgeneralizations, and supporting details. The entry points at which new information can be added to a learner's cognitive structure are referred to as anchoring ideas. New information is attached to anchoring ideas through processes of derivative subsumption, correlative subsumption, superordinate learning, and combinatorial learning. These four processes are at the heart of the meaningful reception learning theory, and understanding them will help you gain a better grasp of this theory. Derivative subsumption involves the learning of new examples or cases that are illustrative of an established concept or previously learned proposition. Here's an example using a concept most people are familiar with: cats. Suppose you understood cats to be warm-blooded, small to medium-sized furry animals that are commonly kept as household pets. So, when you meet a new kind of cat at a friend's house that has these features, you add this new cat example to your knowledge of cats. But your conception of what a cat is hasn't changed, because the new example conforms to the aspects of your current cat concept. Derivative subsumption has taken place. Then you come across a hairless cat. You see that it is definitely a cat, because it has almost all of the aspects of your understanding of what a cat is. It is, among other things, warm-blooded, small to medium-sized, and a household pet. However, it is not furry, and your understanding of what a cat is needs to be modified and extended to accommodate this new cat example. Thus, learning about a new type of cat enriched your understanding of cats in general. This is an illustration of correlative subsumption, which is the elaboration, extension, or modification of the previously learned concept or proposition by the subsumption of the incoming idea. Suppose you have several friends with Peter Bald, Sphinx, and Ukrainian Levkoi cats. You become familiar with the cats and notice similarities among them. This led you to learn about the hairless cat breed, which is the overarching idea concerning this type of cat. This is an example of superordinate learning, in which a new, inclusive proposition or concept is learned under which already established ideas can be subsumed. Derivative subsumption, correlative subsumption, and superordinate learning involve attaching new information to the cognitive structure hierarchy either above or below prior knowledge. Combinatorial learning, on the other hand, happens when new information is related to the general background of another idea. For instance, the analogy of herding cats denotes difficulties in leading and coordinating a diverse group of individuals who tend to venture in multiple directions towards a common objective. Ross Perot's information technology company, EDS, which has since been acquired by Hewlett-Packard, had a funny commercial in 2000 that depicted the difficulties of herding cats.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
EDS, managing the complexities of e-business.
That video brings a smile to my face every time I watch it, and I hope that it helps to make this concept more memorable for you. So, knowing about the idea of cat herding can facilitate understanding of the complex task of group management, which involves leading a diverse group of people towards a common objective. This is an example of combinatorial learning. The new idea of group management is not relatable in a specific sense to an existing anchor, but is generally relevant to a broad background of information, which in this example is the idea of cat herding. From the meaningful reception learning perspective, a student's readiness to learn not only depends on his or her developmental level of cognitive functioning, but also on previously acquired subject matter knowledge and the cognitive organization of that knowledge. Ausubel viewed the knowledge that students bring to a new learning experience as the most important single factor influencing learning. It is therefore primary that instructors determine what students already know about a topic and how well that information is organized in their minds. Learning materials that compare and contrast concepts can help students with poor organization of relevant prior knowledge improve their cognitive structures. Teaching new concepts in a concrete way is a great first step in helping learners begin to acquire new information. Anderson, Spiro, and Anderson revised meaningful reception learning to address areas of the theory that they found vague and inconclusive, and called this Schema Theory. Schema refers to a data structure for representing the generic concepts stored in memory. Schema theory describes how packets of knowledge, called schemata, are acquired, represented, elaborated, modified, and used. Schemata are acquired and modified through the processes of accretion, tuning, and restructuring. Accretion means fact learning, in which new information is remembered within an existing schema. This is similar to derivative subsumption described earlier. Meeting a new cat that has general features of cats you've met before does not change your conceptual understanding of cats. Meeting a hairless cat for the first time, however, impacts your cat schema, and this is referred to in schema theory as tuning. Do you recall a similar meaningful learning process? Correlative subsumption is analogous to tuning. Restructuring involves creating new schema because new information is found to not fit into existing schema. The new schema either replace or incorporate old schema. This is similar to the meaningful learning processes of superordinate and combinatorial learning, depending on the learning situation. An idea relevant to our discussion of cognitive processing for learning is cognitive load theory. As we consider how to help make concepts meaningful to students so that they can develop and modify their schema, we should keep in mind the limitations that the working memory has in regards to how many elements and processes it can handle at one time. Cognitive load theory assumes the human cognitive system has a limited working memory that can hold no more than 5 to 9 information elements, the famous 7 plus or minus 2, and actively process no more than 2 to 4 elements simultaneously. Once the information is stored in long-term memory, there are no known limitations to further working with the information. Thus, long-term memory consists of schemas that vary in complexity and automation. Expertise in a field is developed by organizing and building knowledge into schemas, which allows individuals to combine simple ideas into more complex ones and to automate processes through sufficient practice. By combining ideas into one schema and automating processes, individuals can optimize demands on their working memory. This figure shows 3 kinds of cognitive load in regards to learning situations. Intrinsic load refers to the intrinsic nature of the content to be learned. It can only be reduced by reducing the amount or complexity of the content. As educators, though, we can adjust the extraneous load, which is how content is presented during instruction. For instance, providing students with worked examples and solutions that they can study before having to generate their own can help to establish the schema needed to accomplish the more demanding task of originating their own examples. The processing that occurs as learners construct and modify schemas is referred to as germane load. In the figure, you can see the additive nature of these loads. In A, the intrinsic plus the extraneous loads are beyond the capacity of the learner's working memory, which creates an overload situation. In order to work within the limited capacity of the working memory, either the intrinsic load would need to be reduced, that is, simplify the content or reduce the amount of content, or better yet, reduce the extraneous load using instructional design strategies like providing worked examples or advanced organizers, which I will talk about next. So in B, you can see that the extraneous load has been decreased while the intrinsic load has remained the same. In C, the germane load is shown, which involves the demands on working memory to create schemas during learning. In this diagram, the intrinsic, germane, and extraneous loads all fit within the capabilities of the working memory, which we consider to be optimal. Let's take a look at how we can decrease extraneous load through the use of advanced organizers. Ausubel viewed learning as more than passive listening. He suggested that educators present generalizations that govern the meaningfulness of new information. Advanced organizers are introductory material presented ahead of the learning task and at a higher level of abstraction and inclusiveness than the learning task itself. Advanced organizers activate relevant prior knowledge and lead learners to engage in meaningful learning processes. Analogies, illustrations, and descriptions of concepts, terms, and propositions provide a context that helps to explain, integrate, and interrelate new information with what learners already know. Expository and comparative are two types of advanced organizers. Expository organizers are ideational scaffolding that help learners attach new information to their established cognitive structures. Comparative organizers help learners to distinguish between two or more similar concepts. On screen is an advanced organizer for teaching bacterial metabolism, typically a difficult concept for individuals to understand. This organizer was created by Barbosa, Marquez, and Torres, and is composed of 6 diagrams of metabolic pathways that describe the basic living requirements of several types of bacteria: energy, carbon sources, and oxidizable substrates that provide electrons for reductive biosyntheses. The advanced organizer model of teaching has 3 phases. Phase 1 is the presentation of the advanced organizer. Phase 2 is the presentation of the learning task or learning material. And Phase 3 is the strengthening of cognitive organization. While well-organized material and instruction is an essential ingredient in this teaching model, it is also important that students actively participate to strengthen their cognitive structures. Students can reflect to identify existing perceptions and understandings, try to organize information in personally meaningful ways, propose new examples of concepts being taught, generate their own models and maps of concepts, view material from alternative perspectives, and express concepts using their own words. This model can be used to improve the quality and effectiveness of presentations. Concept maps are graphic representations of various aspects and components of concepts. They show relationships between key ideas and features of a topic, and they can be used as advanced organizers to help orient learners and lead them to develop their own schemas on the topic. Notice the linking words in this example. They are important in communicating the relationship between one concept or part of the diagram and another. Concept maps can be made using just text, or they can have images or even video clips that provide examples relating to the concepts. Though concept maps can be drawn using pencil and paper, there are many technology tools that offer additional benefits of efficiency, ease of arranging concepts, and sharing options. CMAP Tools by the Florida Institute for Human and Machine Cognition is a free concept mapping software, iPad app, and Web 2.0 tool that can be used to create concept maps with linking words like the one shown on the screen. You can download the software, app, or cloud-based tool via their website at cmap.ihmc.us/cmaptools. Because meaningful reception learning theory tends to view learners in a somewhat passive stance as receivers of prearranged materials and instruction, it is not a very popular instructional approach in today's classrooms. However, there are several applications of this theory for instruction that are worth noting. Advanced organizers help students to activate prior knowledge structures that are relevant to learning of new information, and they provide students with a big picture perspective that helps to situate their new knowledge within the context of a content area. Comparative organizers aid students in discriminating ideas by comparing and contrasting concepts. This helps to reduce fading of concepts and subconcepts as they are subsumed under larger, higher-level ideas. Ausubel's notion of progressive differentiation supports beginning instruction with teaching the most general and inclusive ideas and progressively elaborating them. This spiral approach is another way that learners can grasp the big picture and then begin to attach supporting details to the main ideas. Schema theory, like meaningful reception learning, focuses much attention on learners' prior knowledge and the content and organization of instructional materials. It is therefore advised that instructors build into curricula opportunities for learners to make apparent their current schemata. Educators can also direct student attention to the schematic structures of text materials to aid in their learning. Such structures include titles, headings, and text organization. Instructors can explicitly state the big ideas or themes of a lesson to avoid learners accreting information to the wrong schema. And instructors can help students learn effective strategies for solving problems and conceptualizing new information to reduce extraneous cognitive load.